Hello everybody, how's it doing? How's it going? Welcome back to another fan reading on Tales from the Creeps. Is it from? Or I always get that mixed up. Tales from the Creeps, right? You'd think I would know this by now. But you can see I changed my room. I think it looks better. It's wider in here. Ignore the dog food bowl down there. I'll pick that up later. Anyway, I'm coming to... what is wrong with me? The story we'll be reading today is called "The Shadow of the Mountain." This is by Few Concentrate. Few Concentrate 6374. Thank you for letting me read your story. I have not read it yet. The title just sounded kind of cool, and you guys will be getting my blind reaction as usual. So again, thank you to the author for letting me read it, and I will leave links in the description below so you can check out the on the Discord, and yeah, that's about it. So. Anyway, without further ado, The Shadow of the Mountain. John pulled up in the driveway around 8 that morning. His old Blue Ranger packed full of gear. Sat sipping my coffee as he walked up. "You packed?" he asked. "Just about. Got most of it loaded in the truck last night. There's a breakfast on the stove. Grab some and we'll head out after." He went inside and came out a few minutes later with a plate of sausage and eggs and a cup of coffee. "How's the new bow treating you?" How's the new bow treating you? I asked. "It's great. Been using my old one for the better part of a decade, and this new one's a damn fast." "What'd you do with your old one?" "Still got it. Probably going to hold on to it for Sean to use when he's old enough." "Won't be too long." "Yeah, he's been practicing with his little bow. He even got a rabbit when we went on a camping trip a couple weeks back." The deer season started the following morning. We were planning on hiking back in the Sheep Mountain wilderness a few miles and setting up camp. John and I have been hunting in the San Gabriels for years. Most people don't think of hunting when you bring up Southern California, but these mountains are a rugged oasis from the smog and traffic and chock full of mule deer. There are a lot of other hunters and hikers that make their way up from Los Angeles, but they usually stay pretty close to the highway. If you're willing to hike back a little ways, most of the time you'll have it to yourself. After breakfast, I packed the last few items into my truck and we took off. As we drove, the warm September breeze poured through the open window. A chaparral and more rabbits and quail flourished gave me the dense scrub oaks, which in turn changed into towering pines. As the highway cut through the rugged country, we were occasionally be treated to a commanding view of the Mojave to the east, the desert stretching for countless miles, broken only by the silhouette of distant peaks. Made it to the trailhead around 9:30. Our campsite was about 6 miles in. Thankfully, the trail would take us most of the way there, but with our packs loaded down, it still make the most of the day. "You been off this trail before?" John asked. "Yeah, it's steep for the first couple miles, but we'll be able to glass a lot of ground on the later half. Saw some bighorn the last time I was here. Any good springs?" There's one pretty close to where we'll camp and a few more on the way in. Hopefully the one by the camp will still be flowing. The hike up was brutal. The altitude did a little to tame the California heat, and before long our shirts were soaked in sweat. By the time we had camp set up, we still had about 3 hours of daylight left, so we refilled our water from the spring that thankfully was still trickling and broke out the binoculars to see if we could find a buck or two to go after in the morning. We turned up some does and small bucks, but nothing we wanted to go after on day one. We sat and talked about the possibilities for the next day as the sun sank behind the pines. We woke up early the next morning. Rather than searching the same area from the night prior, we decided it was probably worth it to hike up the bridge before sunrise and see if the new ground had been better prospects. That morning we sat and glassed until the thermals shifted uphill. Just like before, we didn't see any decent bucks, so we spent the middle of the day working our way through the drainages on the way back to camp. We moved slowly, keeping the wind out of our faces and scanning with our binoculars, but the only thing we turned up was our group of does. John figured a squirrel would be decent for lunch and launched an arrow at it. Squirrel left with nothing more than a haircut, and we spent the next 15 minutes looking for his arrow. We ate lunch at camp and got a bit of oh my gosh, I am so sorry. We ate lunch at camp and got a bit of an archery practice on a small target, had a hold up, then got a quick nap. Afterwards, we went back to the glassing spot for the last night. A few deer passed, and we watched the jays dance through the treetops as the sun sank. Right at last light, I felt my heart skip a beat as I made out a dark shape lumbering up the opposing ridge. I quickly tapped John on the shoulder. "Bear!" It was about a third of the way up the other ridge in a wide draw full of wax currant. I had caught moving from the one patch to another and quickly lost it once it had made it to the brush. "Looks mature," I said. "Yeah, definitely. See any cubs?" "No, but it's getting pretty dark, and the brush is thick. We'll have to try and find it in the morning. Hopefully it just stays there and eats all night." The next morning, we were back on our glassing spot before light. As soon as we could see where we locked in on the draw where we had seen the bear, combing over every patch of brush, it didn't take long to find it. The bear was working over a small patch of berries on the right side of the draw. In the daylight, we could make out a lot more details. It was big, its head was broad and blocky, and its body looked like a barrel set on stocky legs. Despite being a black bear, its fur was cinnamon color. That's common in California, but leads some people to think they're looking like a grizzly, which haven't been in this state for 100 years. We watched the bear for the better part of an hour, moved through the wax currants, stripping branches of their berries. At no point did we see cubs following it. Eventually it bedded down in the shade of a small outcropping. "Well, looks like he found his spot for the day. Figure we head up the valley, a way we can cut across without him smelling us to work our way over," I said. "Yeah, there's a fallen tree on the left side of that drainage. One of us could post up behind it while the other calls him in." With that plan set, we flipped a coin to see who would get the first crack at him. I called heads, came up tails. It took us an hour to make it to the tree. John sat down, leaning against it, and knocked an arrow. I hung back around the 50 yards, hidden behind some rocks. Once we were both set, I began blowing my call. A shrill cry echoed through the trees, surrounding like fawn calling out for its mother. The response was immediate. The bear stood up from its resting place roughly 200 yards away and began trotting towards us. It made no attempt at stealth, breaking brush as it came. Once or twice, it stopped to look and listen for fawns so I would call, and it would quickly resume its approach. Eventually, the bear dipped into the thicker brush, and I lost sight of it. It kept blowing the call, hoping for the bear wouldn't catch our scent and run off. The sound of the snapping branches continued to grow closer. The bear was approaching from above, and the wind was blowing uphill. When I caught sight of it again, my heart froze. It was coming out of the brush about 40 yards from John and was on track to pass a few yards above him. John had seen the bear shortly after me, and using the tree for cover, he carefully shifted into position. The bear continued moving closer, 30, 20, 15 yards, then it stopped. Its head shot up and its nostrils flared. At the moment, John rose up from behind the tree, his bow at full draw. The bear turned its head and the arrow flew, the arrow connecting with a loud pop, passing through and burying itself into the ground on the other side. The bear spun, snapping its teeth as it tried to fight off its invisible attacker, and then tore off back into the currents, blood painting the leaves as it went. We sat quietly, listening to the breaking brush as the bear ran. The silence returned before long, and we waited bated breath for what felt like forever, when the death moans of the bear came echoing through the trees. With confidence, we took up the trail, and that confidence was bolstered when we found his arrow, fletching that were once white and now were bright red. Small bubbles told us John had hit the lungs, and we knew the bear wouldn't go far. The trail was easy to follow. Torn up earth and grass painted with blood showed the way. Before long, we found him buried in the thickest patch of the currants. After putting him out into the open, we were taken aback by his size. This was the biggest bear either of us have killed. We guessed it was around 350 pounds. After a quick celebration and several pictures of John with his bear, the real work began. We spent the next hour skinning, butchering, and loading the meat into our packs. Even with both of us carrying 60 pounds of meat, it would take at least 2 trips. It was dark by the time we put the last of the meat in the ice chest. We didn't feel like hiking back to the camp in the dark, so we stayed the night at our trucks. In the morning, we washed ourselves in a nearby creek, then had coffee and a freeze-dried meal for breakfast. What do you think? What do you say? Oh my gosh. What do you say to us breaking camp and heading somewhere else? John asked. I don't know. We've been seeing plenty of deer. Yeah, but nothing better than Forky. Only a matter of time before something bigger comes, though. I scouted this spot over the summer. The trail started about 3 miles up the highway. Really rough country on the way in. But it goes into the basin. Found a couple big antler sheds. Figure almost nobody comes back there because of the hike. Might be a nice little honey hole. Sounds like a lot of effort for something that only might be. Alright, then how about we go back in? We'll hunt here until tomorrow afternoon, and if we aren't If we still aren't turning up anything worthwhile, then we can go check my spot. I agreed, and we set off back to camp. By noon the next day, we still hadn't found anything, so we came back to and brought the bear back to John's house. Beth and Sean were just as blown away by it as we were. John told them the story as Beth made dinner, his son hanging on his every word. We were up early the next morning and headed to the new spot. John wasn't exaggerating. The trail was steep and rocky. Walked in for about 3 miles along, and the trail then turned off and headed up the ridge. Dirt was loose, which sapped the energy from our legs in each step. After an hour and a half, we finally crested the ridge into the basin. Any doubts I had before faded away. Not only did the terrain level out a bit, but the area must have been burned a few years back because now it was lush with fresh growth. We spent the day stalking around the side of the basin. By the time we had found a good spot to camp, we had already spotted 4 bucks, one of which was a 3x4, 7-point. Honey hole indeed. We set up a camp as darkness rolled in, and before long we were in our sleeping bags, full of anticipation for the next day. As I lay there listening to the wind whispering through the pines, I heard a coyote call out in the distance. Weird, they're not usually this high up. This is a creature feature, and I do really like this casual buddy hunting setup. I'm very curious to see if they run into one of my favorite cryptids. Oh, I'm excited. On one downside to the basin was that there weren't many good glassing spots. When we did find one, we could only see 150 yards or so through the brush and only in certain spots. Even so, we were still able to turn up a few deer. Got an opportunity on a nice 3x3, but it wasn't able to get close enough. That afternoon, we decided to patrol around to the other side of the basin. There were some drainages going up the far slope we wanted to check out, and we hoped we'd be able to find some decent glassing spots. It was around 2 in the afternoon when I found a carcass. The deer was laid out over the log. Its abdomen had been torn open, and all the organs removed. "God damn!" John exclaimed. "Looks like the cougars have got some luck." "Yeah, it must be a young one. Didn't even try to bury it." "Did you see the gut pile?" "No. Maybe vultures already got to them?" "Maybe. Why wouldn't they get to the carcass? The rest of it's almost untouched." "Might have been moving it and got spooked by us." "Don't think so. Blood's dry on that tree. It's been here for a while." "Well, this cat has a lot to learn. Gonna get a lot of kilts stolen. Let's get going before he comes back. It's the young, dumb ones that make me nervous." We kept working around the edge of the basin until we reached the far side, then pushed up the slope. The drainages didn't produce, but we did find a spot with a commanding view of the area below. We sat in glass for a couple of hours, but other than some squirrels and woodpeckers, didn't see anything. "Ready to head back?" I asked. "Yeah, hopefully this is more of a morning spot. Either way, we should probably move up camp over so we don't have to go so far to glass." So I'm not too familiar with hunting terms. What does glass mean? If can you please, one of y'all tell me in the comments? I would appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Alright, we gathered our stuff and started making our way down. The woods were quiet and the air was cool. That's when we came upon something we missed on our first pass. Oh boy, here it comes. Hold on. I got a burp. Whew, excuse me. Oh, there it is again. It was nestled in some offshoot of the draw, partially dug into the embankment. There was a small cabin. Its roof was constructed from split logs. The gaps filled with pine straw and mud with a thick log serving as the ridge beam. The walls were constructed in a similar manner. The door was made of rough sawn planks braced with small branches that had been nailed into them and suspended on leather hinges. A rope nailed into its server as a door handle. A stone chimney rose from the back side of the roof. To the right of the cabin was what appeared to be a root cellar, dug into the walls of the alcove. The fire pit sat a few yards in front of the cabin with a simple wooden tripod, a chain for hanging pots dangling from it. "Damn, dude, you ever see anything like this?" John asked. "Only on TV. Think it's another hunter's camp or maybe some bushcrafter project?" "No clue, but it would definitely beat a tent, especially in the late season." We approached the cabin. The walls around the door were covered in scratch marks, no doubt from a bear seeking a cozy den for food. John tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. He knocked and called out, but there was no response. Peering through the gaps in the planks, I could make out a crossbar. "It's barred from the inside," I said. "I don't see any other exits." "Well, If there was anyone in there, they probably aren't looking for visitors. As the words left my mouth, we turned to leave. A noise came from inside. A thud, as if it was a large bag hitting the floor. We froze. Not even a breath escaped us. Then faintly, we heard it. A frail voice cried out, "Help. Help." The words hit like lightning. At once, John and I sprang forward, grabbed the handle and pulled as hard as he could, but no avail. Pulled out my knife and cut the leather hinges. The door slacked in its frame, but the bar kept it in place. Slipped my finger through the newly formed gap and pulled as hard as I could, trying to rip off the plank, but the door was well made and held strong. Turned to John. "Get your knife. We can try lifting the bar through the gaps." John did as I instructed. We stabbed into the bar and pried it upwards. It took several attempts, but as soon as the crossbar fell to the floor and the door slipped from its frame, the stench was the first thing that hit me. The stench was the first thing to hit me. It cascaded out from the cabin like an avalanche. The heavy air washed over us, carrying with it its smell of rotten meat and shit. I staggered backwards, covering my nose in a vain attempt to fend off the smell. The interior of the cabin was almost pitch black, the fading sunlight doing a little more than illuminating the ground just inside the door. I retrieved my headlight from my pack and entered. Scanned the room. The floor was littered with empty cans. To my right was a small table next to a bright blue barrel. The fireplace sat at the back wall. Ash piled up inside. There was no firewood in sight. To the left of the fireplace was a coat covered in old blankets and deer hides. As my gaze fell to the foot of the bed, I saw him. He laid there, barely able to lift his head to look at us. His dark hair was as long and unkempt as his beard, draped over his face, leaving nothing visible but the nose and cheekbones. "Jesus fucking Christ!" I heard John say as he rushed to the man. I hadn't heard him enter. I quickly joined him next to the man as he gently lifted him back under the cot. He was emaciated. Each rib was clearly visible. His collarbones protruded as if his skin was shrink-wrapped around them. His upper arm was wrapped in bandages that were stained with dried blood. His breasts were shallow, and he was continuously mumbling, "Help, help, help me, help." I turned to John. "Get him some water. I'm going to check the wound." As I removed the bandages, it revealed a set of deep gashes. A new wave of rotten air came over me. The wounds were covered in half-dried pus, and the surrounding flesh was inflamed with sickly shades of pink and purple. John rushed back to my side. He lifted the man's head and carefully poured some water into his mouth. The man swallowed weakly as John continued giving him water. "We have to get him out of here. The arm's badly infected. Do you have any call signal?" "None." "Fuck! We can't carry him out if we make a litter. Unless we want to break a leg or drop him on the slope coming out of the basin. Got any better ideas?" "I can go back. You stay and take care of him. I'll go until I get a signal, or I'll drive the ranger station in the Ratwood." "Yeah, and what'll happen if you fall and get hurt while you're running around in the dark? Doesn't seem to me we got any other option. He's going to die unless we do something fast." There was a long pause as we weighed our options. John broke the silence. "What do you think did that? Lion? Bear? I'm not sure. You packed your bear spray, right?" "Yeah." "Good. Before you go, help me clean him up." We cleaned up his wounds with water and scrubbed away what we could with the gauze and rebandaging it. The man tensed with each touch and managed to groan every now and then. I'm sure it was meant to be a scream. Once we're done, John got ready to leave. "Get a fire going outside if you get a chance. It'll make it easier for them to find you." "All right, man. Be careful. Doesn't do any good for you to get hurt. If I get reception, I'll keep heading down to meet the rangers and guide them in. I should be back by tomorrow evening." And with that, John set out, and I got some food going for the man. Fed him the gravy from a freeze-dried meal, careful not to give him too much. Once he had finished, I went outside to get the fire going. It's been quite a while sitting out next to the fire as I dreaded going back inside and being subjected to the smell. I looked up at the stars, trying to escape the events of the day, only for a moment. Despite the light from the cities below illuminating the horizon, I was still able to make out the Milky Way up there. The serenity of the night was shattered by a call. The coyote from the other night was closer now, and clearer. Instead of its normal high-pitched yipping, this whine took on a deeper tone, which was followed by an odd chuckle. What the hell's wrong with that thing? Ooh, you're getting me excited. I'm really hoping it's a freaking skinwalker or wendigo. That is my all-time favorite cryptid. I'm getting goosebumps. Ooh, and on the writing, mwah, love the details and the descriptions. Okay, I'm gonna get a drink real quick. Okay, wet my whistle. I continued tending to the man, feeding him a little at a time and giving him water. For long he was fast asleep. Earlier, I noticed an old single-barrel shotgun propped up next to the bed. I unloaded it, placing the shell in my pocket. There's no telling There's no telling how he would act when he became more lucid. While he slept, cleaned up what I could in hopes of lessening the smell. The barrel I had seen earlier was about a quarter full of water, but there was another barrel that I hadn't noticed to the left of the door. As it turns out, this was the source of most of the stench. Evidently, he had been using this as his bathroom, and it was now half full of rancid waste. Dragged it outside, barely containing my vomit. How fucking long has this guy been in there? After that, the room was at least tolerable. So I went back inside and put the door back in place with the bar, settled into the chair next to the table, and tried to get some sleep. Hopefully John would be back with help before too long. Sunbeams poured through the cracks in the door, illuminating the cabin. On the far side of the room, I could see the man was still asleep, chest rising and falling rhythmically with deep breaths. Going over to check him, he seemed more relaxed than before. Perhaps the food helped him give some strength. I opened the door and stepped out of the daylight. The morning air was cool. Looking down at my watch, it said it was a little past 9. Joe must have gone down to the Wrightwood. Either that or he decided a hike was too dangerous to do in the dark and hunkered down until morning. Either way, if he hadn't made it to the Rangers yet, he would soon. The fire was now nothing more than some smoldering embers. Thankfully, the stone ring did its job. It was reckless to leave it unattended. Wandered around the area, finding some tools strewn about. Found a small spring about 50 yards down the draw. The old hermit picked his home well. Standing there, I caught a bit of a movement out of the corner of my eye. Turned to look, expecting a deer or something, but there was nothing. Continued watching, waiting for it to step out, or a bird to fly off, but still nothing. I guess my eyes were playing tricks, which wasn't surprised after the previous night. I began walking back to the cabin when I remembered the root cellar. I don't know what I expected to find in there, but when I opened the door, I was filled with even more questions. The cellar, which wasn't even 15 yards from the front door, was full. Rows of canned vegetables and pickled eggs sat untouched, while their owner starved. Stones thrown away. I headed back to the cabin and stepped through the door. Suddenly, I was very happy that I hadn't loaded that gun. The man was awake. He was sitting up in bed. He had the shotgun across his lap. His hands were shaking as they gripped the gun tight. He was mumbling. His eyes darted around the room, occasionally stopping on me before resuming their search. I slowly raised my hands. "Easy, sir. I'm here to help. My buddy went to the Rangers. You're going to be all right." I tried to sound calm. His response took me off guard. It's in here. It's just you. Close it! Close it! Close the door! His voice boomed. He scrambled to put the door back. The whole time he continued shouting. Only once the bar fell in place oh my gosh. Once the bar fell into place did he relent. Close it. Close it. Close the door, he whispered. I approached him, hands raised. "Sir, it's all right. I'm here to help." I kneeled next to his bed. He turned to me. "We have to stay inside. It's safe inside." "Yes, sir. We're safe. Why don't you let me take this?" I asked, placing a hand on the gun. His grip loosened as I slid it away. Checked the chamber. Still empty. "Let me get you something to eat." I brought the gun over to the table and set it down. Then brought over some water and what remained of the last night's meal. "Careful now. Eat slowly." I watched him as he ate. His hands shook, trying to lift the spoon, but he refused every time I offered to help. When he finished, I took the spoon and the trash from him while he continued staring at the door. We sat in silence for a long time. He would pass out for a few minutes only to shoot awake. Hours passed. Where was John? Where were the Rangers? As the sun began to sink, I could feel my heart sinking with it. Something must have happened. He must have gotten lost or injured. I'd have to go. I'd have to get the ranger station and hopefully find John on the way down. Oh, excuse me. There it is again. Where was I? Okay. Would have to wait until morning. I couldn't risk failure. I checked on the man's injuries. The bandages needed to be replaced. Cleansed the wound before and used the last of the gauze bandaging it. "What happened?" I asked. "How long have you been here? Why didn't you eat anything from the cellar?" "Can't leave. It waits, watching. It sees us. Always. You can't see it, but it sees you." "The lion?" No. Not a lion. A shadow. Then from the third time I heard it, from outside came a deep chuckle, more like a hyena than anything else I've heard. The hermit froze, staring at the door. His hand slowly reached back, finding the wall where the shotgun used to be. Terror evident on his face when he realized it wasn't there. I raised a finger to my lips as he looked at me, then pointed at the table. He repeated the gesture back to me, pleading for me to move quietly. As I crept across the room, I could hear the creature pacing around outside. When I reached the table, I carefully picked up the gun and retrieved the shell from my pocket. Pushing it into the chamber, I slowly closed the action, which locked closed with a solid click. The footsteps stopped, and I laughed along with them. Shivers ran up my spine as the silence held. Suddenly a loud bang came from the cabin door, followed by the sound of claws scratching frantically at the walls. The shuddering cackle returned with a whole new level of vigor. The door shook in place but held. I considered shooting through it, but didn't want to waste the shell, or worse, give it an entrance. I moved back over and sat at the foot of the cot. The hermit sat behind me, covering his ears in the corner. We sat like that all night watching the door. The creature would come and go. Let it fail at any time I began to doze off. I was awoken by scratches in the wall, with that god-awful laugh. I finally relented an hour before dawn. I was able to rest. It was early in the afternoon by the time I got up. The man slept quietly behind me, stood and carefully approached the door, peering through the gaps in search of last night's assailant. Golden light bathed the landscape as wrens and new thatches? I don't know what that is. Flittered through the branches. Despite its pristine appearance, the wood still carried a menacing tone. Turning from the door, I grabbed my pack, opening it on the table, retrieved my food sack. All that remained was a pack of jerky and a few granola bars. I took the jerky and brought it to the bed. Gently shook the man awake. "Hey, I got you some breakfast." The man's eyes slowly opened before lurching up. "It's just me. We're good. It's gone." After a moment, he relaxed and accepted the jerky with a grateful nod. As he ate, I packed my gear and placed it next to the door. Grabbing a water bottle and the shotgun, I returned to the man's bedside. My friend should have been back by now. I don't know what's happened to him, but we can't wait any longer. I'm going to get help. He didn't respond, just stared blankly ahead as he slowly chewed. "I'll leave these with you," he said, gesturing to the gun in the water. "I'll be back with help by tomorrow." "It's there. It's waiting. Hiding," he said shakily. "It was just a bear. It's gone now." Okay, no. You can't be that dumb. Bears don't laugh and cackle and scratch at doors like that. Oh, man. I said, though I wasn't sure which of us I was trying to convince. With that I stood, placing the gun back in its place and retrieved my bow and pack. With that I stood, placing the gun back in its place and retrieved my bow and pack. Also, I take back what I said. He's just trying to find some comfort. I tied the piece of rope around the crossbar and fed it through the door planks. Lifted the bar and balanced it on its supports attached to the frame. The door fell free, and light poured in. Stepped through the threshold and lifted the door back into place. The last thing I saw inside was this man's face. His eyes welled with fear, shone like stars in the dark. As the door nestled into place and pulled the rope, the bar fell into its cradle with a solid thunk. I stood there, scanning the surrounding woods, anticipating some monster to come barreling out of the bush to rip me apart. However, as the minutes went by with nothing but the songs of birds and wind through the trees, my nerves began to relax. I set off, moving as quickly as the terrain permitted, bow in one hand, bear spray in the other. Crud. I lost my place when I went to clear my throat. Where'd it go? Oh, no. This is bad. Okay. I retraced our path around the edge of the basin. Would have been faster to cut straight across, but I couldn't risk getting lost in unfamiliar ground. Our camp was just as we left it, except John's tent was open. Must have stopped here to get something, probably another flashlight. I continued up the slope of the basin as the shadow of the mountain behind me crept forward. I crested the ridge and began to descend. The loose dirt gave away beneath me, sending me stumbling forward until I was able to catch myself on a tree. I sat catching my breath. I've taken this slow, one misstep, and none of us would make it out. It was then that I noticed that I couldn't hear any birds. The woods were silent. Not even the wind dared to move. The hair on my neck stood on end. The snap of a branch broke the silence. I turned, searching for the source, and caught a slender figure slinking up behind a tree. Shot out flying down the hill as fast as my feet would carry me. I slammed into the trees, tumbling over rocks, the whole time pursued by that ominous cackle. Finally, I broke out into the trail, pulled an arrow from my quiver and nocked it. If it came to it, I'd probably get only one shot. I ran down the trail while the shadows grew longer, the final rays of daylight filtering through the pine needles. Rounded a corner and could see the highway stretching out below. Picked up my pace, eager to reach the safety of my truck. From behind a tree on the left side, a dark figure lunged. I twisted right as the wiry paw passed inches from my face. My inertia carried me and went tumbling backwards, landing on my bow. I had no time to recover before I saw the creature scampering toward me, its crooked maw grinning with excitement. As it charged, I let loose with the bear spray, waving it wildly. The beast howled in pain as it veered off into the trees, wasting no time. Stood only for my leg to give out beneath me. My arrow had broken and embedded itself just below my calf. The broad head tearing a wide hole that was now gushing blood. Ew. Ew. I tore my pack off to get the trauma kit. As I put my tourniquet, I could still hear that thing shrieking from the trees. I got up, using my now broken bow as a crutch, began shambling down the trail, praying I'd reach the truck before it could ever recover. Every step was agony, but I wouldn't dare slow down. It was careful before. Careful not to be seen and careful not in its choice of ambush location. It didn't need to be careful anymore. Once it regained its senses, it would be back, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I continued limping down the trail, and just when I caught sight of the road, the air erupted with bellowing laughter. It was coming. I rushed to the truck till the creature tore down the mountainside, snapping branches like a landslide. John's truck sat where we had left it 3 days prior. Passed it as I pulled the keys from my pocket, unlocked my truck, poured into the driver's seat, slamming the door behind me, threw into the reverse and pulled into the highway, headed for Wrightwood. As I sped away from the trailhead, I chanced to look in the mirror. There, silhouetted against the sunset, stood the creature. Its lanky frame stood upright in the road, pointed ears protruding from its blocky head. Its short fur bristled as its long tail swayed solemnly as it watched its prey escape. They called an ambulance for me when I stumbled into the ranger station. I was rushed to Desert Valley Hospital in Victorville. When they discovered the arrow, which had severed several tendons and veins, but thankfully missed the artery. I also fractured multiple ribs and fingers, most likely when I was coming down the slope out of the basin. I was not expecting it to be a werewolf. That's pretty sick. Once the nurses and doctors had their work, the rangers and police came to ask her questions. I pointed out on a map the cabin's location as well as our camp, and told them about the thing that pursued us. The rangers told me they'd get a search and rescue up there, asked me to speak with their wildlife biologist. I agreed, and he came in the next morning. After I finished my story, he assured me it was just a sick or starving bear, and that they'd have it taken care of before long. I nodded, pretending to agree, but I know bears. Bears don't sound like that. Bears don't move like that. Bears don't hunt like that. The hermit was good lord. The hermit was flown out in a helicopter. From what I heard, they had amputated his arm. Search for John was called off after 6 weeks. They were short on resources and a snowstorm had just passed through. They found his bow and pack along the rim of the basin. He was missing 3 arrows. Beth came to visit me a few days ago. We talked about how my physical therapy was going, how Sean was doing in school, and what she had going on at work. Small talk eventually gave way to what was really on her mind, and what I dreaded. She asked me what I thought had happened to John. She had heard the biologist's theory as well as the rumors of a fearsome creature from my story. I guess she was looking for some finality. After all, imagination is usually so much darker than reality. I told her that the biologist was probably right about the bear, and that John might have gotten lost trying to get away and wander deeper into the mountains. I don't know which would have been more comforting to her, that some monstrous predator had killed her husband, or that he escaped only to slowly succumb to the cold. Either way, I think she could tell I wasn't being completely honest. Before long, we said our goodbyes, promising to check in on each other, and she left. As I watched the old Blue Ranger pull out of my driveway, my thoughts turned to Sean. He's 12 now, but in a few short years, he'll be old enough to drive, old enough to sneak off on his own. I fear he will go looking for his father, retracing his steps up that godforsaken mountain. I fear that we'll be waiting for him. Yeah, what a sick story. I love that. It was awesome. I love how it kept, like, the the werewolf like skinwalker thing like a secret up until the very end. That's always what you want to do with like creature features and like just monsters in the woods. Save the descriptions until the very last moment when it's most impactful. I loved it. It was so cool. I love just cryptid stories at all. Like, I just give them to me. I'll eat them up, no matter how good or bad they are. And this one was definitely good. So, thank you. What's your name again? I am so sorry. What's the author's name? Where's it? Okay. If you concentrate, 6374. You did a great job. Please keep writing. I love your writing. What was I going to say? I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, thank you. Like I said, all the links will be in the description below. If you want to check out the author, please support him. Give him encouraging words because I really did enjoy this. So, and I liked the friendship between John and our main character. So, that was really cool as well. It's a shame John got murked by the cryptid. So, anyway, that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later!